Okay, listen, dude. Have you been diagnosed with ADD?
No, have you?
Okay, good. No, I haven't. So you
Okay,
need to
me too.
focus. You need to focus on the question that I ask you, not on a question that you imagine that I say. Now,
You
we'll go
asked
back
me
to the
about my
question
sense
again.
perception. I said no.
Shut your mouth, and stop over talking me. Because when I get somebody like
You're
you
just
who's
saying
clueless,
untrue things, so I have to
shut your
correct
mouth,
you like
or the
you.
conversation will be over. Okay,
Okay,
because I don't put up with cocky young males very long, especially
me
when
too,
you're a
man.
deer in the
Let's get to
headlights
the
such as
question.
yourself. Now, you don't have the foggiest idea of what you're talking about, and the reason why I'm getting irritated is not because you're disagreeing, it's because
Are you sure?
you do not realize how clueless you are. Now, I ask you, what is the causal origin of everything that begins? Do you have an answer to that?
No, I believe that's where science would stop, I guess. What is your answer for that? I'm
Do you
curious.
have an answer to that
I
question?
just answered you. Are you deep?
Okay. Was the answer you don't know?
Yeah, I guess everyone else heard
Okay.
it.
Now everyone heard that. Okay. So you don't know what the causal origin of everything is.
Yeah,
Now,
you're
if you
claiming
don't
that you do.
know,
I'm
don't
interested in
over
your
fucking
answer.
talking me. Shut your damn mouth and stop over talking me, moron. Now, I'm a very patient person, but my
Yeah, I
patience
see.
reaches limits when I'm dealing with a moron deer in the headlights, and I'm going to call you out for it because that's what you are. Now, here's the next question, smartass. Since you don't know what the causal origin of everything that begins is, how did you rule God out as the causal origin? Do you have a logical defeater?
I am asking you what is. I said that I don't know
I'll
it. You
repeat the
claim that
question
you do
again when
know it.
you
Tell
don't
me.
answer it. I will repeat the question again when you don't answer it. Now,
You didn't actually answer my question.
since you have stated you
Why
do
am
not
I right?
know,
Do
okay,
you claim?
fuck off. Get out of here. Okay? You can just fuck off.
Yeah, fucking funny, man.
Yeah, you're a moron, and I will tell you to your face. You can
I'm
fuck
enjoying
off,
this honestly,
and then
but I just
We're done.
wonder, like, why did you got triggered so much? Like, I mean, everybody was seeing where this was going.
Oh
I
no,
just
no, no!
didn't
I'm not
expect it to
triggered.
be
No,
that
no, I'm not
early.
triggered. I'm just not going to put up with an obnoxious, rude, over-talking moron who's a deer in the headlights.
But you're not answering my question. Like, why am I obliged to answer
Hold on one
yours?
second.
Yeah, go ahead and ban me. Use that new skill you got. Thanks to Isaac.
I mean,
Slim.
I'm waiting for it.
Hey, Slim, I heard you answer his questions, man.
Taking
I see where it was going now.
Okay, now we have the moron deer in the headlights is gone. Okay. And you see, this is precisely what somebody does when you start asking them questions about their assertion that they realize that they're screwed. They start to become obnoxious and argumentative. It's called Plan B.
That's an interesting framing, but I think you were being kind of abusive towards him.
I don't care. I wasn't being abusive. I was getting angry because he was being rude and obnoxious and over talking.
I mean, yeah, you were angry, but you were also being kind of abusive towards him.
Yeah, I was being insulting of him because he was being obnoxious. What goes around comes around. I'm well known on Discord. I don't take crap from people, and there are times that I lose my temper when I shouldn't, and there are certain choice words that I say that I shouldn't, but it happens. But you see, the reason why he was doing that was because he had no out. He realized that I had him cornered. He was screwed. He had no way to escape, and he knew it.
Well, sure.
Hold on a second. He knew that I was asking laser sharp questions, that these are questions that are carefully prepared. Okay? And he realized that it was leading to the point where he had no escape. That's why he was pulling that crap. And you see, I debate every week with hundreds of people. I've debated with hundreds, if not thousands of people. And it's very obvious when people go to plan B. It's called start an argument, be obnoxious, start over talking, segue onto a semi-related rabbit trail, don't answer questions in order to stall the conversation and the questioning and to produce a stalemate. That's exactly what he was doing. This is a common tactic. Now, is there anyone else here who would like to defend the position that he was defending, that there is no evidence for God? Anyone?
Not really, but...
Hold on a second. How many people do we have here in the room?
Can I ask
Room
a
owner?
question?
Sure, you can in a second, but how many people do we have in the room?
You can type
Okay.
the
Do we have any atheists in the room?
Yes,
Wow, because usually we have a lot of atheists on this server.
I believe we all are atheists here, Darth.
Well, if you're all atheists, then you would have to conclude that there's no evidence for God. Why is everybody quiet?
Can I just ask a short question? Do you think that...
I asked a sincere question. If you're all atheists, now I want Tonlock and Brojo to take notice here. We have somebody here who stated that they're all atheists here, except for maybe me and maybe a couple others. If you're all atheists, then the atheist slogan is there is no evidence for God. So are there any atheists here who believe there is evidence for God?
No, I
No,
don't.
that wouldn't be possible, right?
Oh, okay. So is there any, watch this, Tonlock and Brojo, are there any atheists in the room who hold to the position there is no evidence for God?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay, who is that?
David.
Okay, David, since you hold to the position that there's no evidence for God, you can take off where the other dipwad left off before he was summarily executed. Now, what is the causal origin of everything that begins, since you have ruled out God?
I don't know.
If you don't know what the causal origin is of everything that begins, how did you rule out God as having no causal relations?
I didn't. I just said I don't know.
You're another deer in the headlights, because you affirm that there's no evidence for God. The proposition there is no evidence for God is a stipulation that there are no causal relations between God and other entities that begin to exist. So you have ruled God out.
There is no empirical evidence.
Yeah, you're not understanding. Listen,
Yeah, he's
see,
not
you're
understanding either.
you're not understanding either. You're another deer in the headlights. When you say, it doesn't matter that you say empirical, okay? Evidence has to do with causal relations and connections between two states of affairs or two entities. So when you say there's no evidence for God, that is the same thing as saying is that God does not stand in causal relations as the causal origin with anything that begins. So if you don't know, David, what the causal origin of everything that begins is, how did you rule out God as the causal origin?
I did not.
Okay, you see, okay, we're going to move on because you are stupid. Because I just went through this twice with you. I explained it to you.
Right.
May I take a stab at this?
How many times do I need to go through this?
Darth, would you then say that a agnostic position reduces down to atheist?
You're going to have to repeat because I had trouble understanding it.
So would you say that a person who claims to be agnostic is actually in fact an atheist?
Yeah, people who are agnostics are in fact atheists. They're just not aware of it.
Would you say the same thing about somebody who claims to be a Muslim?
Would I say the same thing about a Muslim?
Yeah, are they also in fact atheists?
No. Muslims are not atheists. Muslims believe in a creator God. So how could you be an atheist when atheism is the denial or lack of belief in a creator God when Muslims believe in a creator God?
Yeah, okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Then we're on the same page.
When I say your God might exist, does that solve it?
Well, first of all, when you say God might exist, that's to me, that's just a silly thing for you to say, because God's existence is not contingent. It's not like saying I'm flipping a coin inside of a shoebox, and it might be heads, it might be tails. God's existence is not probabilistic. So you're either going to have to assert God exists or God does not exist. There cannot be a position of neutrality.
Wait,
Now-
but that is also true about gold on Mars. That's not probabilistic either. Either there is gold on Mars.
No, you're quite mistaken, sir, because you see, is gold unconditionally non-dependent?
Unconditionally non-dependent. No.
No, it's not.
Okay, is Mars unconditionally non-dependent?
No.
Okay, then Mars and gold on Mars are both contingencies.
Right.
Right. So you see, when we're talking about God, we're in a completely different category. We're talking about that which is absolute, that which is unconditionally non-dependent. Mars and gold on Mars are not unconditionally non-dependent, sir.
Oh my god. Okay.
I don't understand what that has to do with the probabilistic.
Because contingencies would be the result of either an agency producing it, or that it's the result of non-variables along with variables.
Okay.
Then those variables themselves would be contingent. Excuse me, the non-variables would be dependent upon that which is unconditionally non-dependent. So the bottom line is there's no escaping this. You're either a theist or you're an anti-theist. There's no middle ground here. People fool themselves because they're not philosophically adept at understanding that you cannot be neutral about the existence of God. You can be neutral about gold on Mars, because your capacity to live, to move, and to breathe, and to have cognition doesn't depend upon gold on Mars. But your ability to reason and think will ultimately be in virtue of that which is absolute or unconditionally non-dependent. And since God fits within the category of that which is unconditionally non-dependent, the absolute, you cannot be neutral about it. So your cognition, when you say, I lack belief in God, that's an emanation of your cognition. That cognition will either be in virtue of that which is absolute and personal, God, or it'll be in virtue of what you consider to be something absolute that is impersonal.
Right.
Now, you may not be consciously aware of that, right? But
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So
Just
the
like-
argument is that I don't need to be consciously aware of the fact that I'm either an atheist or a theist. But
Yeah,
I
there-
am, in fact, that
So
anyway.
yeah,
It's
so
just like,
agnostics
newborn
are just agnostics are just simply unaware that they're atheists.
Right. Yeah, I can buy that explanation.
I'm not sure I'm
But
understanding this.
Really hard. But that makes it like really hard. It makes it hard for me to defend my position. That's because it's
outside the Christian worldview, no position can be defended whatsoever.
right.
I'm
But
not sure.
it makes it sound like I need to, at any point in life, be able to defend my position that I'm agnostic towards God, right? I feel like if you would ask me that question, then I would probably ask for time to go and research it. But
No, you're not. No. People, listen. People who think and verbalize that they're agnostic toward God are just simply naive, and they're uninformed. They're not aware that they are reasoning. I'd like to finish what I'm saying. I'll be more than happy to respond to you, sir. The agnostic is simply not aware that they're starting from an atheistic framework. Okay?
Sure.
They're not aware of it. Go
yeah,
ahead, sir.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I fundamentally disagree, Mr. Dawkins. See, we both act as if God exists as an agnostic and of course, in your case as a Christian. Now, there's only one minor split, all right, is that I don't go to say it as you do. All right, it's a minor infraction. It's one I hope you could appreciate. Okay.
Hold on a second. Are you an atheist or a theist?
Well, I don't want to be boxed in one way or another.
Yeah, hey, listen, doing a bad impersonation of Jordan Peterson isn't going to win points with me. It's just going to piss me off when you do a bad impersonation. Dude, listen. Okay, dude, we're done. You can stop with the shtick, sir. No,
well,
I'm not
well, hold on. The question is asked in such a way that, I could be firmly placed on a binary argument. Mr. Dawkins.
Nice.
Oh.
Next.
Did I scare him off?
Next.
Okay.
Could you re-articulate this idea that you cannot be agnostic? Because I'm not understanding the connection here.
Go ahead.
Well, I was asking you if you could explain it to me again.
What do you want to explain?
So, all right. So, for instance, if I were to say that I'm agnostic on whether God exists, you would say that this position is fundamentally
that's an incoherency.
Yeah.
That's
So
like saying you have a solid goal square triangle.
Right. So why is it incoherent?
Why? It's because when you speak and you offer propositions and you give forth reasoning, your reason will either have its origin and dependency upon God or not God, whether you're conscious of that or not. So if you do not affirm that God is the unconditionally non-dependent personal absolute from whence your cognition comes, if you do not affirm that, then your cognition will come from an impersonal absolute, because there's no middle ground there. You see, there are some things that you cannot be neutral about. There are many things that you can be neutral about. For example, you can be neutral about gold on Mars because you see your cognition, your thinking, your breathing, your moving doesn't depend upon gold on Mars. But your cognition that you reveal when you make predications and propositions is going to be derivative of that which is unconditionally non-dependent and absolute. And that absolute, whatever it is, will either be personal or not personal. Now, if you say, I lack belief, I withhold belief that the absolute that exists is personal, then that statement is derivative of an impersonal absolute. Now, if you want to say, oh no, oh but contraire, I'm actually staking a middle ground, I don't know which one it is, then your statements, your propositions become completely vacuous because the propositions would have no ultimate foundation. In order for a predication to be intelligible, it's going to have to emanate from a framework and a foundation. And the foundation is going to be either a personal absolute or an impersonal absolute.
So you'd say would it be fair to rephrase this as it is impossible to be neutral on a belief that can be used as a philosophical axiom?
It is impossible to be neutral about that which is absolute. Now, some people are not aware of their non-neutrality. They're completely oblivious to it because they haven't been exposed to certain philosophical and theological perspectives which elucidate that. That's why I recommended to the people in the room to read the book, The Myth of Religious Neutrality. because this academic work definitively shows it, it is impossible for anyone to be neutral about that which is absolute or ultimate.
Because so far, to me, this just seems like a bare assertion. Like if something is absolute, then that makes it
Have you been listening to me the whole time?
Yeah, and I'm saying that what you're saying doesn't.
Okay.
I'm not
All right.
understanding it.
Obviously, you're not understanding, but I'll be glad to go over it again with you. It's not simply a bare assertion. Okay. Now, either you believe that it is fundamentally, unconditionally non-dependent, or you don't. Which is it?
So when you say unconditionally non-dependent, I'm thinking about axioms, like a belief that's unjustified.
This is going right over your head. I'm going to have to even explain it to you even more. I'm not discussing your epistemology, sir. I'm talking about ontology. I'm talking about the ultimate nature of reality. Axioms would have to do with your epistemology. I'm not asking you about your epistemology. I'm asking you about your ontology. Either you consciously or unconsciously hold that something is unconditionally non-dependent, upon which everything else is derivative, or you reject that notion. So I'm asking you, which position do you hold to?
You're asking me whether I hold to a position that there is something that is unconditionally non-dependent?
Yeah, and you better think very carefully about your answer. Do you hold to the position that something is unconditionally non-dependent and that provides for all contingencies, or you reject that notion? Think carefully before you answer.
I would subscribe to that notion, but that's just me.
So when you say unconditionally non-dependent, you're talking about causal relationships? Like there is some...
No, sir. I'm saying that there is something whose existence does not begin and does not depend upon anything independent or external to itself. It is unconditionally non-dependent. Either you hold that there is something that is ultimate and absolute, it is unconditionally non-dependent, or you reject that. Which is it?
I guess I'm not convinced that the idea of an ultimate absolute existence is like a useful idea that you can use to understand the world better.
That's not an answer to my question.
Okay, then I guess I would have to...
Either you accept it or you reject it.
Well, I'm not interested in entertaining ideas that aren't like
Listen to me. I'll ask you one more time. If you choose not to answer the question, that's your prerogative, and it will be my prerogative to ignore you from here on out. Do you hold that there is something that is unconditionally non-dependent and upon which all contingencies derive from? Do you accept that or not?
I guess I don't.
Okay, good. Now you're completely philosophically screwed, because now any proposition that you utter will have no basis or foundation to it ontologically.
Just out of curiosity,
your
is that
assertion,
Derrida's idea?
let me finish. Your assertions will therefore be metaphysically unintelligible. They may be semantically apprehendable, but they will be metaphysically unintelligible because they will not ultimately depend upon anything. If I ask you, if you say A and I say why A, and you say, well, A exists in virtue of B. Well, why B? Because B is in virtue of K. Well, why K? I don't know.
You're saying that this is... You're saying that this is...
Yeah, so the point is now you're going to have to be quiet, because any assertion that you make, any assertion at all, will have no ultimate basis or foundation to it, because you have now denied that there is something that is unconditionally non-dependent. Therefore, you will have no foundation for any proposition.
Wait, so unconditional non-dependent is distinct from a philosophical axiom, right?
Sir, you are confusing and conflating ontology with epistemology. So now that you put your head on the chopping block, down comes the sword. Now you are incapable, excuse me, because of you've told me that you are committed, that you do not hold that there is something that is unconditionally non-dependent. Therefore, whatever proposition you put forth about a state of affairs, it doesn't ultimately depend upon anything. It's game over. You've cut your own head off.
Oh, maybe I just don't have the right philosophical framework to communicate what I'm trying to say.
No, sir, you don't. You've just conceded you have no ultimate foundation upon which to build any statements of contingency. Because when you make a proposition, you're either going to be making a statement about something that is contingent or something that is unconditionally non-dependent. But you said there is nothing that is unconditionally non-dependent. Therefore, you have no ultimate foundation. There's nowhere to go. You've cut your own head off.
Ultimate foundation.
He just means objective reality, but he doesn't give any inclination that this has to be God, which is why it's so frustrating to hear. You're just rambling on and on.
Oh no, actually, I'm not rambling on. I'm simply showing that the not God position, and specifically his position, is philosophically suicidal. Now, you may not agree with. Okay, hold on a second, Dunning-Kruger. You may not agree with me. You may not like what I say, but it is completely dishonest and disingenuous of you to say that I'm rambling.
Well,
I'm just if there's anyone that can explain this like a bit better to me, because so unconditionally non-dependent. I'm trying to understand this as a concept. It's different from an axiom.
Things need to exist outside of your subjective reality. So he's talking about the objective things that they exist outside of you. That's what he means, and that's fine. But that does not have to be.
So a reality that's independent of your senses.
Yes.
No. Yeah. Well, we're done, because there's no point in dialoguing with you, Charbroiled, any further, because you've now rendered your capacity to make assertions null and void.
End up changing
please do not overtalk me while I'm speaking. Okay, I'll be glad to speak with you momentarily. So we're done, Charbroiled.
Well, sure. I mean, I'm willing to accept the premise that there's a reality independent of my senses. Yeah, if you want, if that's what you mean by unconditionally non-dependent.
No, sir. No, you have rejected the notion, and I've already covered this 3 times with you. You've already rejected the notion that there is anything that is unconditionally non-dependent. You've rejected this.
He's changing it because your vocabulary is so limited.
Please listen to me. Stop interjecting until I tell you I'm done with Charbroiled. Okay, so we're done, Charbroiled. There's nothing more for you to say, because in order for you to make predications, you're going to have to make assertions that something is the case. But how are you going to account for that which is the case? Because that which is the case will, because of your prior commitment, be contingent. But in order for it to be metaphysically intelligible, what is it ultimately contingent on? Well, the answer is there is nothing, because you don't believe that there's anything unconditionally non-dependent.
Well, it seems that I just misunderstood you. I wasn't sure what you meant by unconditionally non-dependent. But if
okay, good. So do you have a change of heart now? Is there something that is unconditionally non-dependent?
I do believe that there is a reality that exists independent of my senses. Sure.
No, I didn't ask you that. That's not an answer to the question. Do you believe that there is something that is unconditionally non-dependent and upon which everything depends?
Yeah, you still don't get it, bro. What he's trying to say is that, like, I'll just use his example, like, for language, like the word black can only exist with the word white, and there's not like some word that has any real grounding in any other word, and words depend off other words, and there's no like base word that is a base for language. and really language is just language and it has no base. Would that be a good example of what you're trying to say, but just with philosophical concepts in general?
Did you like Nothingness's explanation? Nice meme.
Yeah. Okay, so we're done. Okay, so Dunning-Kruger, you're next.
Just call me Cross, please. Tired of the memes. But yeah, so why is one thing that you just said mean a create?
You're breaking up. Are you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Okay. Why does this unconditionally non-dependent thing that you're referring to have to be a creator God?
Why? Because he revealed it.
Okay, so I'm going to take this logic and I'm going to apply it to another hypothetical, okay?
No, I'm not interested in hypotheticals. I'm only interested is if you do not accept my representing the Christian worldview. If you don't accept that, your only option is to present, listen to me, your only option is to present your model of reality. You cannot put on the table another model of reality as a defeater for the Christian worldview. To do so is incoherent.
You have no idea what I was about to say at all. So may I continue?
Okay. Do you accept the Christian worldview?
It is a worldview, yes.
No. Do you accept it? Listen, dude, don't play dumb with me because then I get pissed off. Do you accept its actuality? That the God of Christianity is the creator of all things?
If you allow me to just say what I was going to say, I think you could understand.
Answer
I don't
the
have a
question.
yes or no to that question.
My patience runs out when people are fools. Do you accept the Christian worldview as being actual?
Can you let me speak, please?
If you don't answer the question, I will move on to somebody else.
I'm trying to, but you're not letting me.
Do you accept the Christian worldview as true?
Okay, no, I don't.
Okay, what is the worldview that you will be speaking to me from?
Mine.
Yeah, last chance, dude.
I don't have a name for it. It doesn't seem to completely cohere with any other view that I've seen thus far.
Okay.
So can you let me speak so that I can share my
worldview? What is your basic model of reality? What is it that is unconditionally non-dependent and provides for all contingencies?
The arcane. It is mysterious.
What is it that is unconditionally non-dependent, sir?
The arcane.
What is that?
It is mysterious.
Okay, we're next.
Oh, in all
seriousness, I'm turning it down. We're done. Next. Anyone else?
Me.
Go ahead.
What's up, man?
Yeah, you see, when people are stuck on stupid, it's like the needle on a record player. I move it. Go ahead.
I get you, dude. So, all right. What's your thesis? Is that nothing depends on anything? I agree. There is no dependency.
No, I didn't. That wasn't my thesis. My position is that the God of the Bible is that which is absolute. The God of the Bible is that which is unconditionally non-dependent and is the creator and sustainer of all things. All intelligibility for all statements of predications, propositions, only derive their metaphysical intelligibility in virtue of God as the creator and sustainer. If you reject that, then you're going to have to tell me how your model of reality provides for that.
I reject that. But
Good.
I totally reject that. And I think that
Fine.
there is no overall dependency.
How do you know that?
I don't, but can you say that there is?
Okay, now did you just realize what happened to 2 or 3 gentlemen ago when they rejected the notion that there is something unconditionally non-dependent?
No,
Did you realize?
I'm kind of new to this thing, but
Oh, okay, all right. If you reject the notion that there is something fundamentally absolute that all contingencies depend upon, then when you make assertions, they're meaningless. They don't depend upon anything.
True.
Good, then it's game over. Then you need to be quiet.
No, but that doesn't mean that there is a absolute contingency. It's dishonest.
You're not. You see, you're another deer in the headlights.
I totally fucking disagree.
You are another deer in the headlights, and I will tell you to your face, and then I will explain it.
Okay, literally what you're talking about.
Don't overtalk me. Don't overtalk me. You are not understanding the dilemma that you're in. You are in a very serious, I'll use the word precarious philosophical position. Once you admit that you do not acknowledge or accept that there is something that is absolute, then you have nothing to ground your statements of contingency in. Therefore, they are rendered metaphysically unintelligible. If you don't understand what I just said, I'll be glad to further unpack it.
I totally get what you're saying. What you're saying is there's this philosopher named Derrida, which existed in like the 1960s, and this was his whole shebang. As he said that everything depends on everything else, and that there is no absolute, there's no base for anything. And that's the honest truth. There really isn't.
Okay, you're still not getting it. Okay?
I totally am.
You're another deer in the headlights. See, this is the frustrating thing, is that when I explain something and I dumb it down, then I have to even further dumb it down. Now,
I get what you're saying, dude. You think I don't get what you're saying? I get what you're saying.
No, you do not. Stop arguing with me. You do not get it. Now, once you verbalize that there is no fundamental absolute, then there's no basis to assert any statements of contingency. Do you understand?
Yes.
Right, so it's game over. Then you destroy your ability to make assertions.
Yes.
Yeah, it's game over. So whatever assertion you make, doesn't matter what it is, whatever statement of fact that you make, I'm going to ask you, is that statement of fact or proposition unconditionally non-dependent? Well, you're going to have to answer no. And I'm going to ask you, what does it depend upon? And then you're going to have to
around it. And
you're not. Listen. How old are you? Are you a teenager?
I definitely am.
Okay. The most trouble I have with people understanding it is with young teenage males, because they don't. Your brain isn't fully formed yet, and you haven't developed you haven't developed critical thinking skills. Okay, that doesn't mean that you're stupid. Okay, it just means that you're inexperienced. Now, once you acknowledge that there is not anything that is absolute or foundational, the moment you make an assertion, it doesn't matter what that is, then that assertion itself will be a contingency, because it'll have to be a contingency because there's nothing that is unconditionally non-dependent in your view. So then what does that statement depend upon? And if you say, well, it depends on X, Y, Z, and I say, well, what does X, Y, Z depend upon? And then you're going to go, I don't know. So your assertion is based upon I don't know.
Why does there have to be a base?
Because then it's an arbitrary declaration.
It is, but with a base, it wouldn't be an arbitrary declaration.
Well, sir. Listen to me carefully. I'm going to demonstrate it to you right now. The reason why everything you say is wrong is because the moon is filled with green cheese. That's why you're wrong. Do you accept that? Do you accept it or reject it? Everything you say is wrong because the moon is filled with green cheese. Do you accept that?
The moon is green, therefore you're wrong.
See, no answer. See that amazing? I tell him everything he says is wrong because the moon is made of green cheese, and I ask him, do you accept that? And he can't answer it.
Oof. Yikes.
No, because the things I'm talking about aren't really about.
Do you accept my reasoning? You see, you just demonstrated you're a deer in the headlights. There's dead silence coming from you.
No, I don't accept your reasoning, but
okay, why? Why don't you accept my proposition? Is it because it's baseless?
Yes.
Oh, you reject. Wait a minute. You reject my proposition because it's without foundation. Do you reject my proposition because it's arbitrary?
But rationalism is...
Do you reject my proposition because it's arbitrary? See, deer in the headlights, folks.
I think what you're sensing, nothing is not all baseless.
No, we're done here. We're done here.
Not all baseless statements are.
Now you're turned down. Please don't make me eject you from the room. You had your chance.
Not all baseless statements are necessarily created equal, right?
Did I not just issue you a warning?
So just because a statement is baseless, if you share a base with somebody else, you know, then you can still communicate with that person, right?
That's kind of what I was thinking, but...
Yeah, so like if you say,
now, if you reject my proposition because it's arbitrary, you're laying out that arbitrary propositions are vacuous. But you yourself have conceded that you have no unconditional, non-dependent foundation that any proposition or statement of contingency depends upon. Therefore, you have conceded that you're making arbitrary declarations. It's game over. Lights out. It's the same position that the Japanese were in at the second dropping of the atomic bomb at Nagasaki. It's time to surrender because the nuclear bomb has been dropped.
Okay, to be honest, I do think you're wrong, but I do not have a good comeback at the moment.
If you think I'm wrong, listen, do you think I'm wrong in virtue of the law of non-contradiction?
No, you're perfectly consistent.
No, sir, you're not understanding the question. In order to make a determination that X is wrong, you have to believe and assert that not X is true. How are you going to determine that any proposition is false? The only way that you can determine that a proposition is false is that the negation of the proposition is true. So if my position is wrong, then the negation of my position must be true. So what is that proposition that is a negation of my proposition, and how is it true? What is it?
That there's no base. There is no absolute truth. There is no base to facts.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So you accept arbitrary declarations then?
I don't know.
If either you accept arbitrary declarations or you reject it, which is it?
I don't know, but I will let you
now.
Go
isn't this amazing, folks? Listen, another deer in the headlights. I asked the gentleman here, "Do you accept arbitrary declarations?" And his answer is, "I don't know." Amazing. You see, this is the consequences when you reject the revelation of the Christian God, who has given accurate and objective and self-attesting revelation of himself, infallibly recorded in the Bible. When you say, "Oh, well, you know, I don't accept that. You know, you haven't proven it to me."
Well,
then
I would just like
then what
to
you're
say,
doing, please do not
hold on.
overtalk
I've broken
me.
through the material substrate, Mr. Dawkins. Now, if you're right about Christianity, slam dunk, high five, Mr. Dawkins. But if not, they can't say crap to us because their death has done the server muting for us. Now, is that not an agreeable statement? Awfully quiet, like a deer in the headlights, Mr. Dawkins.
Okay, why is the command not working to the mods? Please remove Cole Peterson from the room. The command is not working. Okay, so now we have exactly what Ask Yourself said would not going on, that a mod would not be pissing on me. Okay, so Cole Peterson, you can fuck off. Okay, you're trolling and you're attempting to piss on me. Okay. Now I would suggest, for your sake, that you stop your pissing on me. Okay? I have no interest in speaking with you. I have no interest in engaging in your theatrics, pretending to be Jordan Peterson. You're a moron. Now, is there anyone else who wants to continue the conversation?
Why is your language so restricted? It's not even... What's the point? Your language is so restricted. It's like asininely so.
Can you hear me? It's really not, though.
His language, yes. It's so restricted. And it's just a bunch of word salad for a bunch of garbage.
No, it's not.
Okay, yeah, no, it's not. It's a very carefully worked out theological and philosophical position. You don't have to accept it, but it is not. Don't overtalk me. Do not overtalk me. Now, you don't have to accept or agree, but because you are so intellectually inept to offer a defeater, what you are resorting to is just simply vilification. That it's word salad. It's not word salad. Okay? What I'm giving is a form of transcendental reasoning. Okay? And because you are inept and you are naive, you don't know how to counter it. Let me ask you this question. I can send you a book written right now. It's a book written at a collegiate level. It's called The Myth of Religious Neutrality. Okay? One of the central lines of my reasonings comes right out of that book. Now, I'll send you the book right now. Are you willing to say that that book is a word salad? It's called The Myth of Religious Neutrality by Krauser. No. No, you're not. That's typically what deer-in-the-headlights idiots who don't like what they're hearing, because they want to believe that their worldview of skepticism can retain some level of coherency. And when I come along and I said, no, your system completely collapses. Your model of reality is incoherent.
Is it? Do you know the definition of arcane?
If you want to maintain that the Christian worldview is not actual, then you're going to have to tell me. Okay, listen to me. Don't overtalk me. Then
wait, hold on a second.
Wait. All right, we're done. We're done. No, we're not done.
Do you know the definition of arcane? I'm posting it, like, in the chat, because apparently you don't. So, like, can you read the definition so that you know what I mean when I say the arcane? Can you do that? Gee.
Next.
I'll have a go if no one else wants to.
I didn't understand what you said.
I'll have a go. I'll jump in if there's no other takers.
Sure. What's your position?
Well, first, if maybe I could just articulate back to you what my understanding of your position, so I don't get that wrong. You're saying basically that you have this foundation for your knowledge and understanding that allows you to make assertions and conclusions that are superior to mine as an atheist that I can't really hold anything to be true. No, okay, sorry.
No, my position is not that it's superior. Is that my model of reality? Okay, the Christian worldview is the only reasonable and coherent worldview. And any worldview that is not the Christian worldview is a denial of the Christian worldview and will result in incoherency. In other words, you will have no basis for metaphysical intelligibility of any assertion.
Yeah, okay, so, but I mean, being coherent versus incoherent is, I would say, superior.
No, the issue superior has to do with evaluation of a hierarchy. Okay, it's not that the Christian worldview is better. The Christian worldview is the only rational and coherent worldview to hold to, the only one. It would be like if I said to you, if you came over to my house and you said, all right, where's a knife to cut the meat, to cut the roast? And I say, oh, it's in the drawer. And you pull it out and you say, is this your best knife? And I say, it's the only knife in the house. And you say, oh, so it's the best? No, there's no best because it's the only one.
I got you. So it's not a continuum. It's a binary.
Right.
You're saying it's, yeah.
Yeah, it's the only coherent worldview. Now, if somebody wants to step up the plate and say, au contraire, the Christian worldview is vacuous, somebody can do that. We've already had about 6 or 7 people try to do that, and it's ended very badly for them philosophically.
Well, this foundation that you have that allows you to make a coherent argument is based on something which is, it's not provable. It's just a belief system.
Well, the problem that I have is that statement. Does that statement emanate from the Christian worldview or not?
I don't know what you mean. Of Christians believe in Christianity and non-Christians don't.
Provability has to do with that which would be verifiable and can be authenticated. Now, when you say that the Christian worldview, and that entails the Christian scriptures, are not provable, what you have declared then is that the Christian scriptures are not, because of their origin, meaning from God himself, self-attesting and self-authenticated. So by virtue of that, you have denied the existence of the Christian God. Do you realize that?
Yes.
All right. Do you have okay, now, in the case that the Christian God exists, then your statement would necessarily be false, because whatever the Christian God gives in Revelation, by definition, would be self-attesting and self-authenticating because of who God is. Now, since you say that the Christian worldview and hence the Christian scriptures are not provable, what you're saying is they are not, in fact, self-attesting and self-authenticating, thereby that the Christian scriptures are not the infallible word of God. And that is a de facto denial of the Christian God. Now, that statement that you have made will not be sustainable unless you have a defeater for the Christian God. Do you have one?
No, I don't think that's required. I don't think I need to.
Oh no, it is.
Defeat the idea of the Christian.
Well, look, listen. If by definition, in the Christian worldview. Now, when I say by definition, I'm not saying that you have to accept it as actual. But what you can't disagree is what is defined within the system of the Christian worldview, right? Like, for example, in the Christian worldview, the Christian God is defined as being triune. Now, you can certainly believe that no God exists, or that a God that exists is a monad and not triune. But you can't disagree that the Christian worldview, the God of the Bible, is defined as triune. In the same way, in the Christian worldview, the scriptures are defined as being God-breathed or God-exuded. Now, if you make a determination that the Christian scriptures are not self-authenticated, right? You said they cannot be proven. So in other words, they cannot be proven by any appeal to any ultimate authority, including God himself. Then the God of the Bible necessarily cannot exist. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Right. So do you have a defeater for the Christian God? Because if you don't, then your statement that the Bible is not provable is not necessarily true, and it's simply a guess on your part.
Well, I haven't seen any proof yet, and I've looked. It's
no.
There's lots of things that disprove a lot of things that just stated in the Bible.
Now what you're appealing to is incredulity. Now, I asked you a question. Do you have a defeater for the Christian God?
Maybe not a defeater.
Okay, now since you don't have a defeater,
stop over talking me.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I was taking the piss.
Okay. Now, since you don't have a defeater for the Christian God, then for all you know, it may be the case that the Christian God exists. And in the case that the Christian God exists, his revelation would be self-authenticating and self-attesting, and hence proven, whether or not the recipient of the self-attesting scriptures is persuaded or accepts it. Because provability.
Yeah, I get you. If it's true whether I believe in it or not.
Now, here's the problem. Your criterion is also a double-edged sword. When you throw a boomerang with razor edges, it might come back and cut your own head off. So when you say that the Christian scriptures are not provable, does your worldview have a foundation and a basis that anything can be ascertained to be the case where you cannot be wrong?
Well, that's a big question. I mean, I would say, yeah, there are things which are known to be definitely true. There are
very funny, Carlos. Okay, does your worldview provide a way to ascertain anything, and that which you ascertain cannot be wrong?
Some things, I guess. I mean, mathematics is you can't 1 + 1 = 2. I mean, but how can I prove that to you?
Yeah, blue blues equal Kerfunkel times 1.
Yeah, I get you. I think I get you. So in that respect, yeah, I guess there is
abstractions.
Abstraction for sure. We made the whole shit up. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, they're inherently tautological.
Yeah, so in that way, I guess no. There's no way of knowing anything for sure except.
Okay.
So, I know that I'm conscious.
Okay, good.
But
so
I don't have.
No. Is there anything? Listen carefully. Is there anything that you can assert that you can't be wrong about?
Probably not. No.
Okay, then why are you asserting that the Bible can't be proven?
Why don't you prove that it is correct?
That's not an answer to my question.
Well, I'm asserting that because that's my belief. That's why I'm asserting that.
No, yeah, you asserted it as veridical. You asserted it as actual. You said the Bible cannot be proven. And that includes your statement that the Bible is not self-attesting. How do you know that the Bible is not self-attesting? How does your system, what is your ultimate authority for making a determination as to what is true?
I never claimed ultimate authority.
By the way,
I don't know that it's false, but when I analyze the information and I look at it objectively, don't overtalk me. Most people don't say overtalk. We say talk over. So
is it true
I get a little bit autistic.
Is it true that the Bible is not self-authenticating?
It's my belief that that's true.
I didn't ask you if it was your belief. I said, is it true?
I can only give you my beliefs. That's all I can give you. I don't know what you want from me. You want me to be Buddha?
Arbitrary? Is your belief arbitrary or not?
It's as arbitrary as yours.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that the Bible cannot be proven is an arbitrary declaration. Is that correct?
Well, in the context of what we're talking about, you could say that everything's arbitrary.
Okay, that's not an answer to my question. Is your declaration...
Okay, yes.
Okay, good. So why should I accept any arbitrary declaration that comes out of your mouth?
I don't know. Well, you accept arbitrary declarations that come out of books written 1,000 years ago. So obviously,
is that statement you just made arbitrary?
I don't understand how you're not getting it. Yeah, it's all arbitrary, but you just believe one arbitrary thing.
You're not, listen, you're not getting it. You're another deer in the headlights. You truly don't get it. And by the way, even though that's a bit of an insult, I'm not saying it so much as an insult, but to really get through to you, you are a deer in the headlights. You don't realize the implications of what you're saying. It's going right over your head.
I think I'm on the same page. You're just saying that your arbitrary assertions are superior to my arbitrary assertions.
Do you have a headset? Do you have a headset? I'm tired of listening to myself being reverberated on your speakers. Now, you right now, you're not getting the implications. When you concede that your statements are arbitrary, then they're vacuous. Because then I can just sit there and say to you, you're wrong because the moon is made out of green cheese. You're just making arbitrary statements.
So you think your statements are less arbitrary?
No, that's not my position at all. And in fact, my statements about the Christian worldview are the antithesis of arbitrariness, because those statements are a reiteration of what God has, in a self-authenticating way, revealed in natural and special revelation. Now, if you reject that, then whatever assertion comes out of your mouth, I'm going to ask you what you're standing on that will provide for the intelligibility of a statement. But you've already told us all your statements are arbitrary. Therefore, you have no basis. Now, originally, you said the Bible cannot be proven, but you have just admitted that all of your assertions are unprovable as well. So the condemnation that you heaped upon the Bible falls upon your own head. You have just committed philosophical suicide.
No, I don't see how that works. I mean, yeah,
okay. Yeah. You know what,
but you're contradicting yourself, because you're saying that your statements are arbitrary, but then you're implying they're not.
I'm about to end it right now. Listen, I just painstakingly went through this with you minutely.
Yo, can someone mute this Jackson bitch?
You are a deer in the headlights. You aren't comprehending what I'm saying. You're just being argumentative in response. You made a condemnation. You said the Bible is unprovable. Okay? Now, if the Bible is unprovable, then it cannot serve as the final authority. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good. Now, are any of your assertions provable?
I don't need, a foundation like that.
Listen, dude. I'm really, you know what? Get a freaking headset, will you please? I'm tired of hearing myself in your speakers. It's rude not to do that.
Are you pushed to talk? Yeah, well, push. Dude, you stop talking over me and you won't hear it.
Now, you stated that the Bible is unprovable. Therefore, what the Bible says has no authority. But you stated that your assertions are arbitrary. Therefore, your assertions have no authority whatsoever. They're meaningless. So the condemnation that you delivered...
I want to talk, but you won't push to talk.
Around, okay, you're not understanding. The condemnation that you delivered to the Bible wipes you out. But you're not getting it because you're a deer in the headlights. You know why? It's because you're not a careful thinker on these matters.
Really? You believe in a sky god and you're telling me I'm not a careful thinker?
No, you're not a careful thinker, because let me explain something to you. Everybody believes in a absolute, whether that absolute is personal or impersonal. Now, what you want to do is you want to enter the domain of a theological and philosophical debate, but then you want to do a little bit of stand-up comedy, that you think that giving a moniker to God is somehow a cogent argument. Saying a sky fairy is not an argument. Now, do you believe that in order for me to believe in God, God must be worthy of belief. Now, if I don't hear a clear and direct answer to my questions, if you just give me circuitous responses, I will stop talking with you. Okay? If you want clarification for the question, I'll be glad to give clarification. So here's my question. Do you think that it is ridiculous to believe in God because I don't have sufficient reason or justification for God?
No, I don't believe that.
Why is believing in a creator God therefore ridiculous in your view?
I just said it's not. I said it's not ridiculous.
You referred to believing in God as believing in a sky fairy, did you not?
No, I said sky god. I don't think maybe I might have said fairy. I don't think so.
Whatever. So I believe that there is a creator God. Now,
that's great. If it helps you live your life, if that helps you live your life, then go for it. I'm not against it.
That's not my position. My position is if you don't accept the self-disclosure of the creator of this universe through his progressive revelation, his natural and his special revelation, which is progressive, then immediately upon the rejection of his communication of himself and about the nature of existence, after that, any assertion you make will be neutralized, because you won't have, by your own criterion, you won't be able to establish the intelligibility of any assertion. You've already admitted it because you told me minutes ago that every assertion you make is arbitrary.
And I believe every assertion you make is arbitrary. The difference is that you don't talk over me. I'll let you talk a lot.
Then it's game over. We're done.
No. But it's just your belief. You can't prove why what you stand on is fundamentally more coherent. I'm getting it, but you're not getting the facts.
No, you're not, because what you're doing is you're simply like when a dog goes back to its vomit and it goes yum and it starts lapping up. You ever seen a dog eat its own vomit? Have you ever seen a dog? Okay, there are certain dogs that eat their own feces, right? You are simply regurgitating the same statements that I have completely neutralized minutes ago, and you're just simply reiterating them.
You may feel that you have, but no, you haven't.
Dude, I'm not. Listen to me carefully. This is going to sound a little bit harsh. You are.
Go for it.
You're not comprehending what I'm saying. It's going right over your head because you don't like what I'm saying here. I'm explaining to you by your own concession. You have stated that everything you assert is arbitrary. Therefore, whatever you assert has no foundation, no basis. You are now dismissed, sir.
Yeah, but you're just claiming that what you say is less arbitrary, but you have no basis for that claim.
Is that statement arbitrary?
Is everything is arbitrary in this context?
Is
yes.
Is that statement
the
arbitrary?
Sword cuts both ways, my friend.
No, you're not. Listen, okay, we're going to move on. Next person. The guy is so clueless. He doesn't realize. Did you ever see the movie? Hold on a second. Nothing. Did you ever see the movie Blazing Saddles, where the black sheriff, where they put a gun to him, and all of a sudden the black sheriff puts a gun to his own head? Okay. This is what you have done. You have you have said, nobody move or I kill X, and you're X, and you pull the trigger. That's what you have done in this conversation.
I can see why you're so angry.
And you're not aware. Listen, I'm not angry. I'm just assertive. You're not aware that you have been completely neutralized in the conversation. And the reason why you keep on talking is because you're just simply reiterating the same vomit that has been neutralized many minutes ago. And we've been over this 3 times. So we're done. Next.
Sure. Just a little point of confusion. So isn't his position totally consistent, though?
It's clear to anyone listening that this is ridiculous.
Consistency. Yeah, he's consistently arbitrary by his own concession.
And so are you.
Okay, nothing. Listen, plants, what you get? We're done. You're a deer in the headlights. Now, nothing.
You love that phrase, don't you? You really love it. You love it.
Well, I think it's very descriptive. A deer in the headlights typifies somebody who's standing there who doesn't understand not only what they are, but the predicament that they're in.
He was just waiting for you to prove your own
nothing.
position.
Hold on a second. Okay, listen. I don't dialogue with 3 or 4 people. I dialogue with one person at a time. Now, nothing. Are you still there?
God can let you dialogue more than one person.
Okay, lives. Listen to me. If you're going to be a heckler, I'll just simply turn your volume down and I will ignore you. If you're further disruptive, I'll banish you from the room. Okay? Now, if you want to interact with me one at a time, whatever your name is, okay, I'll be glad to do so. But right now, I was talking with nothing. If you want to be next on the queue, I'll be glad to humor you. So nothing. Do you realize that he admitted that everything he says is arbitrary? And you want to say, well, at least he's being consistent?
Yes.
Do you really think that's praiseworthy?
I mean, it is what it is.
Do you really think that that's praiseworthy to state that everything one says is arbitrary? Is that praiseworthy?
It doesn't mean it's not the truth.
Okay, you're a moron. Now, okay, go ahead, man.
I don't think so.
We're done with you. You're an idiot.
If you so Darth.
See, I run into people all the time that not only are dealing headlights, the people they don't care if they're spewing gobbledygook in idiocy, as long as they can just be argumentative and just make a pretense that they're verbally opposing me. Well, at a certain point, when somebody is just simply incoherent on their own terms, there's no point in conversing with them any further. You know, it's kind of like the police in the killings in the bank in Florida the other day. At a certain point, they just move in with the heavy artillery and start throwing in flashbangs and start firing. Okay? Go ahead, Livs, or whatever your name.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Are you married?
I don't get into my personal life.
But you just asked people personal questions about their beliefs.
No, I'm asking them questions about their metaphysical commitments. That's different. I didn't ask them about their personal lives.
Sure.
Did you want to address a topic that we were discussing or not?
Sure.
Or do you just want to be a heckler?
What is a heckler?
Okay, good. Did you want to address something that was on topic?
On topic about God.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm waiting for your point.
Why are you doing this?
Okay. Do you have something substantive that you'd like to say?
I have a question. I believe you can answer.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Why are you doing this? Do you want to convince us?
Why am I doing this? Because I'm demonstrating that the Christian scriptures and the revelation of God are absolutely true, and that the denial of it leads to absurdity. And if you reject the Christian worldview, you will be rejecting God's substitutionary atonement through Jesus Christ, who died on the cross and rose again to not only redeem us from our sins, but to redeem us intellectually, morally, ethically, not just give us eternal life. And the demonstration that Christianity is true is through a reductio ad absurdum, that if you deny it by virtue of non-acceptance, then your position will be reduced to absurdity, which I have done with each and every person who has attempted so far this evening to oppose the Christian worldview.
That's very noble.
No, that's what the Bible commands Christians to do.
I understand you.
I'm not noble.
I
may be assertive. Sometimes I get a little bit miffed and angry. Sometimes I say, certain insults that maybe I shouldn't say. But you have to feel I'm dealing with a whole lot of fools that want to line up and shoot their mouths off. I'm not going to hesitate to tell somebody is a fool when they put their foolishness on full display. I'm not telling people are fools or deer in the headlights because they don't understand. It's that when something has been painstakingly explained, step by step by step, and then they just write it off.
Yeah, must feel.
I mean, how foolish is for somebody to say, well, all assertions are arbitrary. Well, if all assertions are arbitrary, then so is that. Then that statement is vacuous.
Yeah, you're right.
His position has been reduced to absurdity. That's why in the 1 Corinthians it says, has not the wisdom of God turned the wisdom of world into foolishness? Foolishness is when one's position has been rendered absurd. And you see what happens is people who are unbelievers in Jesus Christ, unbelievers in the revelation of the Christian God, they devoutly believe that they are not absurd and that they can make intelligible sense of their existence. No God needed. You don't need the Bible. Well, this guy says, well, you can't prove the Bible. Well, I just showed that by his own criterion that he can't prove anything. Therefore, he shouldn't be saying you can't prove anything because that statement can't be proven.
Yeah, you're right.
So basically what he's done is he's pulled out a gun and he says, nobody move. Or the guy with the mustache dies and he's the one with the mustache.
I have seen actually Blazing Saddles. It's a cool movie.
Yeah. So this is how you can know Christianity is true. And the reason why you see, when it comes to evidence is specific to a model of reality, right? So that if somebody is committed to a not God position, it doesn't matter what evidentiary lines of reasoning that I give, because it will simply be reinterpreted within the framework or model of reality of not God. So it's a waste of time presenting evidential lines of reasoning. Now look, was the creation designed? Was it fine-tuned? Absolutely. If I present a line of reasoning of fine-tunedness and of design, it will simply be dismissed. That the design is the result of a bottom-up action rather than a top-down. So there's only one thing left to do, and that is to show that the denial of the Christian worldview and the denial of the revelation of God in the Christian scriptures about who he is and what the nature of reality is and how he created and organized things, that denial means that the opponent, whatever assertion they make, they're going to have to support those assertions from the ground up, from their own foundation. But you see, that's when they get very upset. Because you see, they have certain... Sure, go ahead.
I was wondering, do you believe that it is possible to actually reach these people?
Absolutely. I get messages all the time, private DMs, from people telling me that I've changed their mind. And they after they thought about it for a while, over days and weeks and months, they're like, at first I thought, Duncan, atheism, I thought you were a joke. And the more I thought about it, I realized that there's no escaping what you have said. And I point out, it's not because I'm a genius. It's because the wisdom of God is greater than all of the foolishness of man. And they want to say, well, that's just religious mumbo jumbo. I said, good. If you're going to write off the wisdom of God, the revelation of God, then what do you have in its place? And you see, they have nothing. And you
smart.
See, and they want to sit there and say, oh, prove to me your God exists. I say, okay. I say, God has revealed himself in everything. Everything is evidence for God. Do you know why? Because an apple cannot be evidence. If an apple is evidence for God, then so is a banana. If a banana is not evidence for God, then neither is an apple. So either everything is evidence for God or nothing is. So when somebody says nothing is evidence for God, I want to know how they made that determination.
And does nothing exist? Or since it's nothing...
Well, they have no basis to make that determination other than the fact that they don't want to believe. Look, I don't know if you were in here earlier, but we had an atheist who said, well, there's no evidence for God. And he got taken to the woodshed, which is an American phrase. I said, if there's no evidence for God, then tell me, what is the causal origin of everything that begins? He goes, well, I don't know. I said, then do you have a defeater for God? He says, no.
What do you think?
Then on what basis do you assert there's no evidence for God? You see, atheists of a generation ago used to boldly assert there is no God. But they began to realize as Christians and God believers became more philosophically adept, they realized that was going to require a philosophical defense. And since most atheists cannot defend the proposition that there is no God, they think that the slogan, there is no evidence for God, doesn't require defense. Because they think it's like, you haven't convinced me. But you see, that's not all there is to it. The statement that there is no evidence for God is propositional. And it's going to require an accounting. And I demonstrated here tonight and in other conversations that people who assert there is no evidence for God cannot defend the proposition. Therefore, the proposition is vacuous.
Well, it's amazing what you do. Thank you.
Any other atheists?
I'm an atheist, Darth.
Say that.
I'm an atheist. Would you like to talk with me?
Okay. Now, what kind of an atheist are you? Do you deny the existence of God or have a lack of belief?
Lack of belief.
Okay. Is your lack of belief the product of your reasoning and cognition?
Yes.
Okay. So you lack belief in God. Is it because God as the personal absolute is not rationally accounted for?
I'm just not convinced by the reasons that I've seen so far.
That's not an answer to my question.
Well, I think that...
Do you lack belief in God as the personal absolute because God has not been rationally accounted for?
Not that I've seen. So yeah, I would say yes.
So, okay, good. So the personal absolute that we call God has not been rationally accounted for. Now, is that position that you just verbalized, is it the product of cognition and reason?
Yes.
Okay. Does it stem from an impersonal absolute?
Yes, it does.
Okay, what is it?
Logic.
What?
Logic.
No, sir, you're not understanding this, okay? Logic are abstractions about the external world, okay? Whatever that is. Now, what is it that is unconditionally non-dependent and absolute and impersonal that is the basis and foundation for all contingent states, including your capacity to reason? What is that impersonal absolute?
I think that that's what logic is.
Okay, you've now, like a dog returning to its vomit, I explained to you why that answer is untenable. Why are you repeating the same answer when I gave a rebuttal? You did not offer a counter rebuttal, sir.
Yeah, so the reason is that I don't agree with your characterization of what logic is.
Okay, do you have, okay, logic is an abstraction. It's a conceptual framework and abstraction about the nature of reality, such as the laws of logic. A equals A. Right. A cannot equal not A. Those are abstractions about the nature of entities at all times and all places. Okay?
Yeah,
so
I don't think that it's...
the nature of affairs and events is going to stem from an absolute. Now, I don't think that you would be so foolish as to say, that contingencies don't ultimately depend upon anything, because that statement would be a logical contradiction and incoherent. So when you offer a proposition or a contingency, whatever it is, it's either going to be contingent in virtue of a personal absolute or an impersonal absolute. When I ask you, what is that impersonal absolute, since you lack belief in the personal absolute, when I ask you what that impersonal absolute, and you repeat a second time, which you did, logic, you're not answering the question. Because logic is is an abstraction about the nature of the particulars and the relation to the whole. So you're going to have to tell me, what is it that is ultimately unconditionally non-dependent and absolute? What is it?
Right. I don't agree that logic is a conceptual framework. I think it necessarily exists.
You're another deer in the headlights. This is embarrassing here tonight. I get one deer in the headlights after another, and I'm not embarrassed to tell you that, sir. Okay. Logic are abstractions that seek to explain the nature of entities, okay, of things, and their relationship to other things, such as a dog cannot be running in the backyard and at the same time and in the same sense not be running in the backyard. That's called the law of non-contradiction. So logic is an abstraction about the nature of what actually does exist. Okay? It's a conceptualization about the nature of everything that does exist, what its characteristics are. Now, those things that do exist will either in and of themselves be unconditionally non-dependent, or they will be dependent. Now, when you make a proposition, whatever it is, if you say the green grass is blowing in the wind, that's a statement of contingency. Green and grass are contingencies. So then the question is, what do they depend upon for their state of being? Unless, of course, you want to say that grass, or the class known as grass, is unconditionally non-dependent, which would be ridiculous. So I'll ask you again, since you lack belief in the personal absolute God, what is the impersonal absolute that all of your reasoning is derived from?
Right, so there are different views of logic. You seem to hold to like a conception.
We're not discussing logic right now.
Well, yes, that's what
we're discussing. What is fundamentally, okay, does the moon for its existence depend upon mental abstractions?
No. And logic is not a mental abstraction.
Is logic a mental abstraction?
No.
Oh, it's not? Then what is logic? What is logic?
The laws of logic necessarily exist.
Can you show me the law of non-contradiction?
No, it's non-natural.
Right. Then it's an abstraction, sir.
Yeah, but it's not a conceptual.
All right, dude, listen to me. I've dealt with you before. I recognize your voice. You're another deer in the headlights. Now, one more time. If you invoke logic again, the conversation's over. It's already been rebutted. You have not offered a counter rebuttal. Now, if you are in possession of reason and cognition and thinking and breathing, those things are contingencies. Are they not?
Yep.
Okay. Now, what do those things ultimately depend upon? If you say logic, we're done with the conversation.
Yeah, I guess we're done because you weren't engaged.
Good, thank you. Have a nice day. Anyone else want to continue the conversation?
I don't have anything against you, I think.
Yeah.
Have a good day, man.
Yeah, you don't have a clue as to what you're talking about.
Okay, well, I disagree.
Anybody else? No other atheists?
You got them all.
Has Christianity vanquished all the atheists on Ask Yourself server tonight? It's a lot of people in the room. I'm sure we have quite a few atheists in here.
I just have a question.
Sure.
So, is the God you're describing the only thing that can be non-dependent?
Yes.
So, why if one were to say that the universe, just if we're going all the way back to the beginning of the universe, why could not that be non-dependent?
Well, the previous model of cosmogony used to hold to that the universe just always was. But based upon empirical reasoning, okay, I'm not advancing this as an argument. I'm just saying based upon empirical reasoning, people hold to the second law of thermodynamics, that in a closed system, everything moves from order to disorder. So we have a series of contingencies. So when we say the universe, is each and every star unconditionally non-dependent? Well, I don't know of any cosmologists who would say that. Maybe they might say that at an extreme quantum level, fluctuating quantum energy is the ultimate substrate that is unconditionally non-dependent, upon which everything else depends, including stars and moons and asteroids and bunny rabbits. But you see, the universe began to exist in the standard model. And by the way, it was Christian theism for 2,000 years has been boldly screaming that the universe began to exist. Cosmology, secular materialistic cosmology in a previous last generation used to assert, oh no, the universe has just always been. But once they observed the redshift in the background cosmic radiation, they realized, oops, the universe is expanding, okay, in all different directions. And if it's expanding, then it had a beginning. That's why the standard model today in cosmogony is of the Big Bang. I don't accept the Big Bang. So the universe itself, if you hold to the standard model, cannot itself be unconditionally non-dependent because it had a beginning.
So, what I've heard, I'm no physicist or anything, but what I've heard that's been said about the Big Bang is that when you go back right to the point in which the universe came into existence, it keeps decreasing down until you get to a singularity, where in which the laws of physics just begin to break down. Could you entertain that because the laws of physics begin to break down, it is possible that that singularity could be non-dependent?
If you want to posit that the singularity is unconditionally non-dependent, go for it. But the universe is not the singularity. The universe is the result. The universe is the result of the expansion of the alleged singularity. Okay?
Yes.
Good. So are you positing that the singularity is that which is unconditionally non-dependent?
No, I'm just asking you that if in your system that could be accepted.
No, it can't, because I hold to the Christian scriptures that they are the infallible, inerrant, authoritative communication of God, and that God tells us that he created the earth before he created anything else.
Okay. I was just asking, I just wanted to make sure I could fully appreciate the argument.
That's fine. Listen, I don't have a problem with people asking questions or even people debating and disagreeing. What I do have a problem with is that when I've explained some very basic and fundamental concepts to certain people, they simply ignore it, do not offer a rebuttal, and then they simply regurgitate the same propositions that I have rebutted. without offering a counter rebuttal. And that's why I tend to be a little harsh and tell them they're deer in the headlights. I mean, we actually had a guy in here saying, well, all assertions are arbitrary. Well, including that. So then why are your assertions, not you, but that person, why would your assertions be meaningful or intelligible if they're arbitrary? I mean, the cluelessness of some of these skeptics is staggering to me.
Mm-hmm. What the only problem that I've seen here, the only question I'd want to ask is that, so I understand the argument that you make that if someone says that you're just assuming God, if you're just assuming God's existence, then you can just fire back and say, well, you have nothing to base your own logic on, therefore how can you even make that criticism? The only question is,
well, if they say I'm assuming it, what they don't realize is that's a de facto denial of the Christian God. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, unless they have a defeater for the Christian God, then their declaration that I'm simply assuming the Christian God is an arbitrary statement.
Yeah, I see. So, but in your system, how do you know? Is there any way to know that the Christian God exists other than what is physically around you?
The only way in the Christian worldview, the only way to know anything is a result of God's revelatory acts. So, for example, when Adam opened up his eyes and he looked, at the rabbit running across his feet, the only reason why he knew it existed is because God created the world. God created Adam's eyes. He created the rabbit. He created the mental substrate of Adam's mental and cognitive faculties. So we have natural revelation, the way God constructed this world and the way he constructed man's mind to operate at a foundational level that we cannot think otherwise. For example, we cannot think otherwise that A equals A or A cannot equal not A. You cannot think otherwise. And God ordained it that way because that's what the nature of God is. He's self-identical. He cannot be what he is not. Now, that's natural revelation. Then there's special revelation. So we can only ultimately know some things because God has a plan of human history so that we can know some things. If somebody comes along and says, oh, I don't buy that religious gobbledygook written by Bronze Age goat herders, I say, fine. Then the moment that person makes an assertion, I'm going to want to know what the system is that they're speaking from. What's the foundation? What's the substrate? By what authority do they assert things? How do they know what they know? And you see, their theory of knowledge or epistemology will only be in virtue and viable in virtue of what their model of reality is or their ontology. So then I'm going to want to know what their ontology is. And that's why I raised the question of whether the gentleman accepted a personal or an impersonal absolute. Because there's no escaping it. You can't be neutral. If you say, if I can be neutral about gold on Mars, I cannot be neutral as to whether the ground of all being is a personal or an impersonal absolute. It's either one or the other. And my capacity to reason will be in virtue of one and not in virtue of the other. So people who think and verbalize that they're being neutral are clueless.
So just to clarify, so I'm just going to restate. So if I would assert that God doesn't exist, that cannot be because the system I'm living in can only be the result of God's existence.
All right. Can you repeat that again, please?
So if I were to assert God does not exist,
the Christian worldview
must be impossible because the system I'm living in, the system that allows me to make that assertion, is the result of God's existence.
That's very good. I have to give you a lot of praise because out of all of the many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that I have spoken to who are not in the Christian camp have not understood that, nor have they articulated it as well as you have.
Well, thanks. I'm already Christian. I was not really fully appreciating the argument before.
Okay. Yeah. What you just stated is what theologian Cornelius Van Til said. Atheism presupposes theism. Now, when atheists hear that, they laugh. They think it's ridiculous. And what Van Til means by that is you're going to have to presuppose Christian theism, even at an unconscious level, to even attempt to reason about the non-existence of God. Because if you say, oh no, I do not have to consciously or unconsciously presuppose the Christian God as the absolute that provides for that, I say, good. Then what's the absolute that provides for your capacity to reason? And you know what I hear? Most of the people go, well, my brain, evolution. And they're still not understanding it because those are statements of contingency.
Okay, and another question I have, if someone were to bring up another form of the creator, maybe someone from a different religion, and then base their system off of that God, could they use it to criticize your own system? And would that hold up?
No, because they need the properties and the attributes of the triune God of Scripture for a coherent worldview. People have attempted to do it. Now, in fact, it's funny that you should mention that, is because just a day or two ago, the position that I take is called biblical presuppositionalism. And there was a guy on an atheist chat show who claimed that he was a Hare Krishna presuppositionalist. And a number of us who watched it, including the atheist host, thought he was just an atheist troll pretending to replace the God of the Bible with Krishna. But that's a parody of the Christian God. And any attempt to supplant the Christian God with some other God will just be a parody, because you're going to need all of the God of the Bible's properties for coherence for the worldview. It's not going to be enough that they simply advance that their God is omniscient or omnipotent.
What specific properties are you talking about that make the God you're talking about the only one that can exist?
That God is eternal. He's absolute. He's omniscient. He's omnipotent. He's always truth revealing. He is triune. Okay, that he is personal. Right. God from eternity is personal because each of the members of the Trinity are distinct and can relate to each other in eternity past, where a non-triune God cannot. Now, most people advance a monad of God. Now, some people, on rare instances, will offer a dualistic or a quadrinity, but it fails because, you see, Christianity is a historical religion, and God has revealed himself through progressive historical revelation. And if they're going to advance such a God, where's their historical revelation? So what it reveals is they're just simply making this stuff up at the moment, when they don't believe in God, and they're just simply attempting to erect a parody in order to say, your Christian God isn't the only one. It's been tried before in debates. It doesn't work. And in fact, there's a very serious, very sophisticated theological work, a book that I have, and if anybody wants to read it, and it's not easy to read, where he shows that the Trinitarian makeup of God is absolutely necessary to have an ultimate coherent worldview.
Okay. Well, thanks. I mean, I just wanted to clarify some things. I appreciate you answering.
And if you send me a DM, I have a server that I'm on a regular basis. If you have any further questions, just send me a DM and I'll send you an invite.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other atheists out there? Otherwise, I'm going to be shoving off to another server. Okay, I'll take that silence as good riddance. It's been fun, ladies and gentlemen.
See you later.
Mr. Dawkins.
Who the fuck was that guy? Who the fuck? Who was that guy, though? I just joined in, sorry.
Do you guys notice you have like a YouTube channel or something? Like
Legend.